Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome back to the only streaming podcast that has the hardest working imam in the imam industry, if that's a thing. I don't know if the imam industry is a thing. I'm sure they feel like it is because they work so hard all the time. So let's just pretend that the imam industry is a thing. And I will say, ladies and gentlemen, the hardest working imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and greetings to all of our listeners tonight. We are so happy to have you back with us this week. We apologize that we missed you last week due to certain circumstances that came up. We could not meet with you last week, but alhamdulillah, all we can say is everything is good. The poll stands at what you decided to speak about last week, and guess what? It is so relevant this week also. So, Carl, tell us first and foremost, our prayers to your family. Alhamdulillah, it's good to hear everything is good with your mother in law, and we pray that she continues to recover and feels the strength. Tell us, Brother Carl, I mean,
Gentlemen, if this is the first time you have joined this show, make sure you follow us on Twitter, VennNetwork, VennNetwork. Every Monday we post a poll, and that poll is a series of relevant topics that we are going to discuss on the show that evening, or that we may discuss, whatever. You get the point of what I'm trying to say. And if you follow us on Twitter, then you, our fans, our listeners, those that follow us, you get to pick what the topic of Tuesday night's show is going to be. Because the show is not just for us, the show is for you as well. And so we want to make sure that you have a say in what we talk about, because these are the topics that are interesting to you, not just us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, make sure that you follow us on Twitter, VennNetwork, in order to take part in the poll. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we posted this poll 2 weeks ago, and it says, when leaders don't lead, am I my brother's keeper? And what's the deal with, which, as you know, is my personal favorite. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on the screen in front of you, if you're watching this live, it was the Am I My Brother's Keeper that came in at number one, thanks to all of you who voted. And so tonight we are going to discuss the fact of, are we our brother's keeper? And I'm going to start this off by saying I had a very relevant conversation with Blair Imani. I think that's how you say her last name. Background that it's important for us to be there for people, to support them, especially when they're after just basic human rights. If it's something just as simple as somebody wants the right to work, or somebody wants access to health care, or something like that, even if it doesn't, jive with your personal religious beliefs, you have to sometimes look at health. And so, with that being said, but
thank you so much for explaining. But who define acknowledged, divinely prescribed rights? Some feel that they don't need to do. But look, we're coming off of a very difficult time here in Dallas, where a police officer was convicted of murder for killing Mr. John in his apartment because she thought she was entering her apartment. And it was a bittersweet moment because in the last 46 years, a police officer has never been convicted for a crime, only for the following day the sentence to say that she's only going to go for 10 years, eligible for parole in 5. And then one of the star witnesses, or the key witnesses, a neighbor, is found dead. And they say today that it was a drug deal gone wrong or something. But Carl, let's be real. We're living in a world of blatant racism. We're living in a world of blatant privilege. So it's easy for me to say what you just said, and it's much more meaningful when you say it because uh, you're not in the shoe of a Desi immigrant American. You're as American as it gets. But yeah, we're our brother's keepers and our sister's keepers. But I want to hear from you and our listeners today. what weight does that hold? Like if I showed you that on that shelf over there, Carl, there's that medicine that can heal you, but all you have is access to look at it. You can't touch it, you can't take it, you can't afford it. You're not privileged to have it. You know, in this unfortunate drama that's unfolding with Ukraine and other countries and people in the White House and text messages and transcripts of phone calls, you find certain people who are the president's keeper and brother because regardless what wrong happens, they're going to stand with the person. So I think there's two things we need to do. Number one is define the value of it, and number two, define the definition of it. Because I cannot be your keeper if you're constantly doing wrong and telling people it's okay. I'll protect you for that. Right? So that has to be understood. I'm your keeper, you're my keeper, but when I do wrong, it's a keeper's duty to call that person out and say, look, this is wrong. And as a well wisher, to hope that they fix their matters and they become better, and that you can be instrumental in guiding them to become better. But when you come down to the discussion that I'm my brother or my sister's keeper, regardless of what they do, regardless if they um, wreak havoc on this earth, I'm still going to be their keeper, i.e., my keeper clause requires I should sit back quietly and let them do what they're doing and actually justify it to be right, then what kind of keeper is that? So, the two things again, what is the value of being a keeper at a time where blatant racism and white supremacy uh, it's rampant in our world. It's the fact. Hindu extremist BJP party in India, what's happening in China and Hong Kong. Uh, the Houston Rockets, I think GM tweets about how he felt that what was happening in Hong Kong was wrong, only for China to cancel all the viewings of the NBA preseason games or exhibition games. And I've just read something this morning that the final two games aren't going to be happening there. So let's be real to each other. What does it mean to be a brother's keeper? And what is the value of being a brother's keeper? So I want to pose those two questions to you, Carl. Like, what's the value of it? It's good in word. I could open these Islamic books that have, mashallah, all this beautiful stuff written in it that, various problems arising out of sale of grain. Wow, hoarding grain is something which is forbidden at a time of scarcity. Yeah, we could read it all. But what's the value of it if it's not in our world? What's the value of it if it's not for all people? Please, Carl, tell me.
Well, I think the first thing I want to address is the simple fact that, I mean, you're right that if you're going to continuously do bad and you're going to continuously do wrong things, then no, we're not supposed to be your keeper. We're not supposed to protect you. And I mean, but as I'm saying that, I'm thinking what Allah has covered, we are not supposed to uncover. But,
Correct.
but I mean, if you killing people and you stealing and you know what I mean, then no, I'm not going to protect you for that, and I'm not going to be your keeper. I'm not going to be your protector. I'm not going to be there to defend you.
Mhm.
But if you're asking for something as simple as I want health insurance, or I want access to health insurance, or I want the right to work, or I want the right to a living wage so that I don't have to survive off of mac and cheese. Not that there's anything wrong with mac and cheese, because I'll be honest, I went to Church's Chicken last night and I bought a big old thing of the mac and cheese and I ate half of it myself. But that's beside the point. If that's all you're asking is for a living wage, then yeah, I mean, I think it becomes down to what's right versus human rights. And healthcare and food and living wages, those should all be human rights, as opposed to something of murder, theft, oppression. You shouldn't protect somebody that's being an oppressor. But I mean, like I said, at the same time, what Allah has covered, we're not supposed to uncover. So I don't know. You shouldn't go out of your way to help protect that person and be like, no, I didn't see anything. If somebody asks you, you should be honest and say, yeah, I saw that dude. I keep telling him not to do it, but he keeps doing it.
Mhm. The thing is, but that's true. Like again, that's going back to how the world understands the limits and barriers of who should be a keeper and where the keeper should limit his or her uh, borders, right? Like when you violate, then I'm not going to be your keeper. Islam says at that time, right? That when you got people like Lindsey Graham who are openly saying that there's nothing wrong, everything is fine, and blah, 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 you're creating a new culture where you see nothing wrong because wrong is no longer wrong and right is what you deem and dictate to be right. The question then becomes, where is the value of that? Because we could always talk about the value systems that's been incorporated in the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, religious doctrines and religious texts. But realistically, that's not happening in our world today. So the value of being a keeper is only as good as one's accessibility to it and one's embracing of it and one's acknowledgement of it, and number four, one's respect of its presence. It can only be good if it's accepted. There are so many things that come out technologically, but technology jumps a leap forward, and you know, that's deemed nothing, right? It's deemed like a new TV comes out. That last TV goes down a few $100 and maybe more. What happens is the next technology supersedes that, decreasing and devaluing what is there. So in the same context, Brother Carl, question is simple. We want to do what's right. We want to see what's happening be done right. We want people to feel that they're supported on their right. People in Kashmir have no, how are we the keepers of our brothers and sisters in Kashmir when you don't have access to them and they don't have access to you? And then when you stand up and say something, there's going to be a problem. You speak out against China, not because you hate them, but just because you want them to realize I'm trying to be a keeper. You're shunned from the world. So well, the value is the shelf value. It's only on a shelf. It's something we could go to more to a museum and say, yeah, there was a keeper at one time. But again, as I'm negating the reality of what the keeper means in our world today, I want our listeners to understand that does not, I'm not denoting the fact that being a keeper is not existent no more. It has to revive itself, and you have to be the ones to revive it, and you're the ones who have to give value to it. Things, commodities, and things in our market move based on how people give it value, just like cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are intangible items, but what happens is that the more people give it value, the more value it gets. And the more the people devalue it or discredit it, the more its numbers fall. So, what is a value? What is the intrinsic value that we're giving to taking care of one another, especially people who may not practice like we do, may not live like we do, may not believe as we do? What are we doing? Are we being keepers or not? Because our biases in our being a keeper in itself is one of the recipes of why we're going down the road we're going down. Carl?
I think that Kashmir is a very interesting point, and you're right. I don't have access to there, and they don't have access to me. But I think what's the I'm gonna lean on you. What's that saying or that phrase or that the hadith or whatever where change something with your hands, and if you can't, change it with your heart, and if you can't change it with your heart,
بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه وإن لم يستطع فبقلبه. If you see something wrong, change it with your own hands. And I was just giving a khutbah on this on Friday, that how we use the theology of justice, how the people who follow the theology of justice uses hadith to express a hardline approach of Islam, where the people who follow the theology of peace say that means you do it in a peaceful manner. So, and then they're saying, no, I'm going to point you out. I'm going to change it with my hand. Other ones think, no, you do it with wisdom. But the theology of love encompasses all things. And the theology of love is a glasses frame with two lenses. One is a theology of justice, one is a theology of peace. Combined, they make the theology of love. And when you see things with the both scales, it allows you to better articulate what it is that you are trying to accomplish. So, yes, we have to change things with our hands, but Carl, those days are gone because slowly but surely our so called rights are being eroded and the carpet from beneath our feet is being swept up, and we don't even know it. Technology is actually eating up your rights, and you don't even realize it. And so you can't change with your hand anymore. Those days are gone. See, Egypt just had an uprising, and you don't hear about it anymore. Iraq had an uprising, and what, 150 people got killed because of that. Just because lifting up an Iraqi flag and whatever else the case was, they were killed, right? And so you can't raise your hands. Doesn't matter if you look at it from the lens of theology of justice or the theology of peace. You cannot raise your hands anymore. You can't even open your mouth anymore, because when you open your mouth, you will be deemed a terrorist. You'll be deemed a person who is not a well wisher for a country, a people, a company, or whatever else. And they'll make sure that you are barred from any access to anything. So again, that's gone. And so we're right now talking about how can we restore and uphold the understanding in our hearts, because that's going also. That's really what the discussion's about. The value is only as hard as how much you can value in your heart. And if you can revive it, that you create a circle with people understand the same thing and they're discussing it, then tomorrow Allah will guide you to do it. Look, no one's here to take over the world, and no one is saying here that we're going to destroy the world or something else. We're here to uphold this earth. And I don't know in whose agenda would it be to destroy this earth. If you're saying that person who calls for anything different is calling for disaster and destruction is a terrorist, I accept that terminology. But people who are calling for protection of the earth, protection of our waterways, protection for human life, protection for our countries, protection for our roads, protection for our schools and the children and the teachers, protection of our malls and our shops and our cinemas without the needs of guns everywhere. And kudos and call out to Dick's Sporting Good that have already destroyed, I don't know, $5 million worth of military style weapons. And they produced a book, which I got an email from them today, because they got a backlash because of their steps that they took, that they're not going to sell military grade weapons anymore, and that they wanted to do something good and people put them down, but they're sticking to their values. Yes, they're going to lose money, but you know where your hand comes in now? You go and spend money at Dick's Sporting Good so that they can keep their employees and they could pay them and they can keep their stores open. And guess what? They're not doing wrong. They're just trying to save lives. If if to if to the world killing people is terrorism, then I ask the world, what do you deem a person who's trying to save people? What do you deem a person who's trying to better the world? What are you doing about people who are trying to restore the respect of our governing bodies and leaders, that we respect, disregarding regardless of our disagreements with each other, we should respect one another, that we can sit down at a table and have a conversation, say, you know what, I don't accept what you're saying, but I respect you, and I will honor you because you hold a post that God has given you, and you're going to do it, and we're going to help you. That concept is gone because we don't want to work together anymore. Everyone wants to work against the other. And so, Carl, it's a sad spot we're in our time right now, but guess what? Very, very few people realize it. Back to you, Carl.
Well, what I was going to say before that uplifting message was that um, in my personal position, I may not be able to help those in Kashmir with my hands, but I can with my mouth and my heart. And I can keep them in my prayers, and I can address my congressmen, and I can address my government, elected officials, and I can address them to say, please intervene and please help. So that's how I can be a keeper for them in that fashion. But I get what you're saying, and you're right. I mean, this is one of the big conversations that I have on the regular, that I'm an early adopter of technology, and I realize with every piece of technology that I adopt or I employ or I use, I understand that I'm giving away a little bit of my freedom. I understand that I'm giving away a little bit of my anonymity. I understand. It's kind of like a package deal. Yeah, I want to be able to sit on my couch, and I'm not going to do it because it's in the room with me, and say a specific woman's name and have Tide show up at my door tomorrow. I want that because I like that, and I think it's a very nice feature. Do I am I aware that, occasionally something might be picked up, or am I aware that my information is being used for marketing purposes to me? I get it, and I understand there was a trade-off there, and I understand that. But at the same time, you are right that, and this is something that's going on right now, it really kind of bothers me, and I don't know what to do, because I don't understand. So in let's say I remember being aware earlier, but let's say I became aware of the political environment at 10.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 30 plus years I've been aware of the political environment. I have never seen a situation where there has been a payoff to a porn star. I have never seen a situation where there's physical evidence and there's physical admission of guilt. And I'm just going to say it because I can. And the Republicans just stand around like nothing happened. No, this is totally normal. He stood on the South Lawn and said, "China, please intervene."
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal. Nobody's ever done that. At no point in American history is it okay for a foreign government to to intervene into our elections. That's not okay. That's not what the forefathers had in mind. I mean, we had a whole war about it. It was the Revolutionary War. We had a whole war. And we asked Britain not to be involved in our politics. But here we are, where we're inviting it. And I know I posted a tweet last week, and it's something that I'm internally struggling with it, which is moving forward for the rest of my life. Let's say I live into, inshallah, it's more, but let's say I live into my 80s. So for the next 40 years, am I ever going to have a moment where there's an elected official where I'm at peace with it? Or is there always going to be a shadow of a doubt in my head that Russia intervened or China intervened or whatever? Am I ever going to have peace around something as simple and American as voting?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm trying to come to terms with. You want to call it, some kind of reactionary stress. That's what it is. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to comfortably go vote anymore. I mean, I'm going to vote because I want to vote, because I'm an American and I want to express my voice through voting. Through my hands, I'm going to try to bring change.
So let me ask you something. A brother's keeper is still what you're saying, to go and vote and uphold. That's fine. But isn't a brother's keeper someone who could go up to someone and respectfully say, "I'm really disagreeing with you on something, so I want to explain to you why, and I'm hoping that we could come to a common consensus, a common position, a unified mindset." You see, the world is like this. So Trump is doing his thing. Let's take, for example, India. India is doing their thing, right? And people are saying the Hindus are right. Others are saying the Kashmiris are being oppressed. We got two sides, right? Now, if someone from the Kashmiris or the Pakistanis or some outside person says, I want to go talk to the Hindus in the BJP party, they'll say, oh my God, you're working with them, right?
Yeah.
And if someone from the Indians say, let me go talk to the Kashmiris and say, look, we want to solve this thing. Oh my God, you're a sympathizer to the Muslims terrorist.
Yeah.
So you understand where this brother's keeper or
No,
sister's
you
keeper is going?
100.
You,
Yeah.
we're still working against something. We're not working with something or someone towards something better. And the second you cross the line, because you talk about in politics across the aisle, right? If you're going from Democrat to Republican, Republican to Democrat, it's like, oh my God, the alarms go off. How dare you cross the aisle? But realistically, what kind of world are we going down to? This entire show and a series of our shows are going into a depressing mode because we are pointing out we are pointing out the reality of what's happening in the world, and we're giving our perspective on it from the religious standing. And that's why I want to say our religious standing here tonight is exactly what I just said. You can agree while others will disagree. You can side with someone while others will go against those same people. No one is talking about a common understanding and a consensus across the board, black, white, brown, Muslim, non Muslim. You're not going to get that. That's fantasy land. But what I'm talking about is how you can cross over for the sake of a unified solution. When Allah said to Moses, peace be upon him, idhaba, Allah said to Moses and Aaron, idhaba ila fir'auna, both of you go to the Pharaoh. Innahu tagha. Allah made it clear the guy has gone over his head. The guy's gone crazy. But then what did Allah say? Allah said, go to Pharaoh. And what's the reality of Pharaoh? The guy's a big tyrant. But what did Allah say? فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Speak to him nicely. Speak to him softly. Speak to him in a humane fashion. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرَ أَوْ يَخْشَى. So that he can recollect and remind himself as to the consequences of his actions and then fear God and not do it anymore. See, those discussions are not happening anymore. And it's a problem on both ends. And we can't talk about the opposite end, but we can say tonight within the Muslim community, you dare cross over, you dare go talk to someone who you feel that people feel you shouldn't be talking to, you're done. Your credibility is done. So where is the keeper? The keeper in our own religion is biases. There's biases to it. Just as there are biases of how we regard who we are keeper for and who we are keeper against. So that for me, Carl, is my 2 cents tonight. Um, if Moses and Aaron, peace be upon both of them, were commanded by God to go to the Pharaoh to discuss a solution, the key word should be here tonight. Regardless if the brother's keeper or sister's keeper sees them doing good or evil, the goal is to bring forth a solution. If they're doing good, uh, assist them in their good, and if they're doing wrong, then assist them by bringing forth a solution not just for them but for all people, because we all are keepers one to another. But when we draw the lines and we point out the lines other people have drawn, to me that's a sense of hypocrisy. You can't say, okay, I'm not going to talk to him, I'm not going to talk to them, oh look, they're talking with him. You can't do that. You really can't do that, because you have limited your solution, your desire for a solution, while others may have transcended those man-made limits to find real solution. Back to you, Carl.
So I kind of feel like we've gone full circle and we're all the way back to one of the first one of the topics that we've been talking about since the first episode, which is just simply there are enough groups and people and organizations that are trying to come down on Muslims and trying to like demonize Muslims and Islam, that as Muslims we really need to stop the infighting and come together and stand together, because a house divided against itself will not stand, of course. So it comes down to we do need to find that middle ground, and we do need to find that commonality, and we do need to work together for a solution, because things will only get better when we work together for a common solution. And yeah, solutions and compromise, not everybody's happy. They give a little, you give a little, and you find somewhere in the middle where things are a relative normal, and that's what you go with.
See, I agree with you. There has to be a starting point, right? Now, like my personal experience, Carl, I I lean Democrat. I lean Democrat, but I have a lot of issues with conduct within the Democratic Party. I somewhat agree with Republicans, but again, I have some disagreements with their ways. But if I look at my personal experience, I got my immigration due to a Republican senator who worked because of a Republican constituent who, allowed me to sit in a place where a Republican president welcomed us to this country. This is my immigration, my entire history in this country. I've had the ability to work closer with Republicans than it was Democrats. Does that mean I'm a traitor? Does that mean that I am a bad person? No, but when you can stand in a security room with 6 foot something Jeb Bush and Billy Graham's son and talk about how you feel honored to represent your religion alongside these esteemed individuals, one being a governor at that time and one being a global televangelist. It's an honor to work. And so it's not that you are compromising yourself, it's that you are enlightening the other side to see a different perspective of what they've already have in their mind. So, you know, sometimes I feel, Carl, that it's just a big loss. And the next 100 to 200 years are going to be very, very bad for our people. But then, and I mean people, all people. And then I say, you know what? No, there's hope. And so that hope has to come when we redefine love, we redefine care, we redefine being someone's brother and sister and someone's keeper, the ability to applaud the good, the ability to call out their wrong, the ability to work for a common solution, and the ability to make it trend in our world once more. I think there's hope, Carl. Back to you.
So before you know what, you're 100% right. There's always hope, and even through the darkest of times, we always hold on to hope. And there's so many examples in the Torah and the Bible and the Quran, just of hanging on to that hope that keeps people moving forward and keeps their beliefs strong. And I know we have a handful of people watching this evening, and I also know they're being very super quiet, but I see the numbers. I see y'all there. So while I toss it back to Imam Azhar for his final thought for this episode, I can a couple of quick things is, if you have a thought on this episode but you don't want to share it in the chat room while you're listening to this after it's been recorded, right here at the bottom of the screen, you can always drop us an email. And if you want to be super clever and you want to test our technical capabilities, right below that, right here, I always get the screen backwards when I'm doing this. Right here's a phone number, and you can send us a text message, you can leave us a voicemail, and we'll definitely throw it up on the next episode so that we can be in touch with you guys. But for those of you that are listening live, again, before the final thought, maybe this will be an easier question for you. Um, I went for a contact fitting after work. Are we going with glasses or stay with the contacts? I feel kind of naked without my glasses, and as I'm looking at myself, I really wish I had them on because I feel it outlines my face a little more. But yeah, is that maybe that's an easy question for our listeners to answer. Should I stick with the contacts, or next week would you like to see me back in the glasses? And for our final thoughts, back to you, Imam Azhar.
Well, I was confused. I'm like, this guy does wear glasses. And I wanted to be your keeper tonight and say, Carl, you might be sitting on your glasses. But I said, you know what? There's only 2 months left for that health insurance to expire, so why not? Just go get another pair. I'm joking. Um, no, alhamdulillah, that's good. You're looking 12 years younger now, so you're 12 years out of the retirement age. I'm joking. I'm joking. Um, yes. Again, what is the purpose of these 30, 35-minute discussions that we have with you all every Tuesday night? So what's the purpose? The purpose is to open up and share frustration, thoughts, ideas, understanding of our world, and add the religious content to it to make it more applicable and meaningful, regardless of if it's a good thing or if it's not a good thing. We kind of understand it in a more bigger way. But that being said, you are crucial not just to this show. This show was just an idea that two crazy people, one is Azur and one is Carl, thought we should do. And our goal isn't to attract masses and numbers, but we want to have honest conversations. We don't want to get on the phone with people that we know. We want to get on the phone with people we want to know. And that's everyone. And we want everyone to share what they see from their angle and viewpoint from where they are, and what they are part of, and where they are buried or where they're standing. We want to see it. We want to understand it. And that's what Raw Islam is with Imam Azhar. It's not a preaching show. It's not a fatwa show. It is a talk, an honest talk. And we hope that you all continue this discussion within your circles and have people join. If they're like, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, this is a whole bunch of X, Y, and Z, add them to the show. Tell them to join us. Tell them about VennNetwork on Twitter. Tell them about us on VennNetwork website. Tell them about us on the the Apple iTunes, or tell them on the Google Play Store. Just tell them, join this conversation, get on YouTube, and actually participate. Say your piece. We're not here looking for applause from people. We're here looking for serious discussions, and sometimes funny ones, like when Carl forgets his glasses. Thank you, everyone. Carl, back to you.
I have my contacts in. I didn't forget my glasses. And it's not that it's the end of the year, it's just that I haven't had an update to my prescription in 2 years. And because of the stigmatism, I have to have special fittings when I try mine on. So here's a fun fact for you, just to end on an interesting note about myself.
Mhm.
Guess how many contact lenses I have in right now?
One?
Yes.
No way.
Yup. And in fact, my glasses themselves, when I wear them, they only have, while it has two lenses for balance,
Uh-huh.
only one has a prescription. So there you go. There's a fun fact about me.
That's amazing. That is crazy. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah.
So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of Raw Islam with Imam Azhar. Make sure you check out the VennNetwork.org, VennNetwork.org, where you can find all of our other shows. You can find all of the other exciting things to download, watch, and listen to. And while you're there, make sure you click on the swag tag so that you can get cool swag like what I'm wearing, and you can help support the network, help support the shows, and help support the hosts, because we got to keep the lights on somehow. And make sure you follow us on Twitter, VennNetwork, so that you can take part in our polls. I have been tongue-tied all day. In fact, I was in a meeting earlier today with a fairly high official, and
Mhm.
I was talking about podcasting, and I said I did some podcasts. I don't know why I did that, but I've been embarrassed, and I'm dealing with that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, VennNetwork, so you can take part in our polls on Mondays, so that you can control the conversation, because we're here to help you, and we're here to educate you, and we want to talk with you. If you have a comment that you don't want to, say online, make sure you can email us right here at this email address. It's rawislam@vennetwork.org, and I'm looking at it, looks like I might have spelled that wrong. I should fix that maybe. And if you want to leave a voicemail and share your thoughts, the phone number is right here, 202-930-5175. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will say, Assalamu alaikum.